Hello, I am Daisy, your hostess. In this video, we continue on with the book titled The Secret of Mental Magic by William Walker Atkinson. If you just found me here at this video, welcome, and to you, my subscribers, welcome back. First thing first, if you're new to the channel and would like to catch up with this book, please visit my book playlist and check out the previous chapters. And the second thing I want to say to my subscribers, thank you so much for being a part of my community. I really want you to know I appreciate it. I appreciate the engagement, your likes, your comments, and all that stuff that brings us together. So I really appreciate that. So as we go on with this chapter here, before I go ahead and flip the page, I want to share a couple things here. I think of all the chapters that I've read so far, this one is like the fireworks. Yeah, it's got all the goodies, literally. But then again, if we don't read the previous chapters, we don't get the nut and bolts that we need to kind of put this toy together so that we can go play with it. And it helps a lot to read those other chapters. But definitely this is like the whole shebang. And one of the things in the next chapter here, he's going to talk about the faculties of the mind, where we get a chance to do like a self-evaluation. And I tell you that the more sincere you are with it, the better it is for you, so that you can literally unload some things out of your mind that are just sitting there, whether it's through pondering meditation as you're contemplating on the assignment here, the self-assessment. And it really is a big eye-opener. And some of the things that maybe you thought were important, maybe those things that he's talking about may not be as important. Interesting. And then he talked also about natural law. I found this intriguing because he said that there is in nature a law that tends to furnish the organism that which is needed for its development and necessities. And so this is almost like, I would say, a factual statement, because we see, and he used the example of like evolution, how some animals in nature have adapted to their environment. I don't know, but I think that man is probably the only being on the planet that adapts his environment to him. I mean, like, look, we do make a lot of concessions if we want to live in like coastal areas. And some people, even though you get hurricanes, they still live in those coastal areas. And I don't want to digress here. But I do get that. Then he talked about the importance of developing a desire. And I agree with the author. And he mentioned this in a previous chapter. I just don't recall which one. But the reason why many of us don't get what we want is because we really don't know what we want. And we haven't that burning desire, the one that puts that flame and just keeps it going and keeps you going. But here he talked about the importance of that desire. And one of the things that sets this author apart from a lot of the visualization techniques, or The Secret, that was a very popular thing in the 90s, the book The Secret, which has its good points. But I remember a lot of people would come and have conversations with me. It's like, Daisy, I this is a great book, but I feel like it's missing something. Well, I know that book was like, compared to this book, which was written in 1907, way ahead of its time, where this author's very clear. He talks about the threefold method. And the threefold method is autosuggestion, which we already know that scientifically it's a fact, it works. If it didn't work, then media advertisers would not be bombarding us all the time. And that's the biggest business, is media. I mean, the amount of dollars that businesses put into it so that we could buy into their suggestion to go buy their product is huge. And then visualization, again, another one that science is beginning to make that connection, how important visualization is, because it's like you're putting in a program inside your program. And if you are better at it, very descriptive, and bringing it to life to you, then you're like overriding maybe what you see out here. But the third part is acting out the part. That's the part where you go and do something about it. You begin to embody what it is that you are visualizing. And it doesn't happen in a vacuum, even though there are things, according to what I'm reading in this particular book, a bigger understanding of the energy of thought. And that alone begins to create something in the field that wasn't there before. But definitely all three components together is what really works. And I don't know, I think there was another author that talked about this habit, and this author also touches up on this habit and willpower, and he talks of it as an obstacle to overcome, because the habits become so ingrained in us, right? And if you don't have the will and the endurance to overcome a habit that is not constructive for you, then that's the biggest challenge. But then again, I guess you could start creating a threefold method to conquer that too, if you have identified that as something that you need to work on. So he talks about rules for developing new habits, and fantastic, which is I believe the key to breaking old habits as well, whether it's vices or just anything that you would like to change. He actually goes through the rules that should be followed. Anyway, again, I'm not going to keep at it, because I probably could just keep going, but let's leave it to the author. And I would love to hear your comments. Let me know you were here, okay? And with that, I will turn the page. The Secret of Mental Magic by William Walker Atkinson. Lesson 7. Mental Architecture. Architecture means the art or science of building or construction, and mental architecture means the art of mind building. By mind building, I, of course, mean brain building, for, as I have told you in a previous lesson, I regard the mind substance as an universal energy, of and in which the personal mind is but a center of consciousness, strength, activity, and power. The brain is the machinery of the personal manifestation of mind, or rather the converter or transformer of the mentative energy. But as the word mind is generally used as synonymous with brain, in the case of individuals, I shall speak of mind building in this lesson, although I always mean brain building when I so speak. The brain and brain cells. The differing manifestations of mind in the various persons with whom we come in contact is at once recognized as depending upon the character, quality, degree, and grade of their brain material. The brain is composed of a peculiar substance called plasm, or elementary living matter. The word plasm is derived from the Greek word meaning a mold or matrix, and its use in connection with the brain substance is peculiarly appropriate, for it is in the cells of the brain that mental states are cast or molded, as it were. The brain is composed of an enormous number of tiny cells, which are the actual elements in the production and manifestation of thought or mentation. These brain cells are estimated at from 500 million to 2 billion according to the mental activity of the person. This is always a great number of reserve brain cells remaining unused in every brain. The estimate being made that even in the case of the wisest man or most active thinker, there are always several millions of unused brain cells held as a reserve. And the most advanced science also informs us that the brain grows additional cells to meet any demand upon it. And brain building is the development and growth of brain cells in any special region of the brain. For as you probably know, the brain contains many regions, each region being the seat of some particular function, quality, faculty, or mental activity. By developing the brain cells in any special region, the quality, activity, or faculty which has that region for its seat is necessarily greatly increased and rendered more effective and powerful. Phrenological discoveries. The investigators along the lines of phrenology have long since recognized the fact that brain centers of regions could be developed by proper exercises, and the textbooks on that science give us many interesting facts regarding the same. These cases show us that not only is an individual able to develop and cultivate certain qualities of mind on the one hand, or restrain them on the other, but that also the very outward shape and size of the skull manifested a corresponding change, for the bony structure accommodates itself very gradually to the pressure of the increasing number of cells in some particular center of region of the brain. Mental muscle development. It is a fully demonstrated scientific fact that a man may make himself over mentally, if he will but devote the same degree of attention, patience, and work to the subject that he would in the case of a desired development of some part of the physical body, some muscle for instance. And the processes are almost identical in the case of muscle and brain center. Use, exercise, and practice along the lines pointed out by those who have investigated and experimented along the particular line. Scientific experiments. Professor Elmer Gates of Washington, D.C., one of the most remarkable men of his age, has given to the world account of some remarkable experiments along the line of brain growing. The experiments having been tried along various animals, he tells us that his early experiments along this line were in the direction of training dogs to develop some one particular sense, that of seeing or hearing particularly. He would specially train a certain number of the animals according to his methods, and at the same time would keep a like number of the same animals of the same age, etc., without any extraordinary use of the particular faculty in question, and still a similar number without the opportunity of using that faculty at all. At the end of a certain time, he would kill some of the animals belonging to each class, and upon examining the brains of each, he made the discovery that the number of brain cells in the regions of their brains in which the sense or faculty was manifested showed a startling difference, depending upon the degree of use and exercise of the particular faculty. His specially trained animals showed a much greater number of brain cells than had ever been found in animals of the same breed and age. Remarkable results. Professor Gates continued these experiments over a number of years and obtained some remarkable results. He especially trained the faculties of some of his dogs so that they were able to distinguish between 7 shades of red and a like number of green shades. I have not the time here to speak at length of the wonderful results of Professor Gates' experiments, but he has firmly established the scientific fact that brains may be grown at will, if the person will apply himself to the subject with sufficient zeal and ardor. I have conducted a number of interesting experiments, not with dogs, or through vivisection, however, which have proven conclusively to my mind that the entire natures, dispositions, characters, and faculties of people may be entirely changed by intelligent psychological methods along the lines of suggestion or auto-suggestion, accompanied with certain other methods to be mentioned in this lesson. The 3 methods. The great school of New Thought people of the various sects, cults, and associations have been doing some excellent work along these lines during the past 10 years or more. Their system of affirmations and denials really developed or restrained their brain centers, and desirable qualities were increased and developed, and undesirable ones were restrained. But the mere use of affirmations, autosuggestions, or even strong positive suggestions given by another forms only 1/3 of the work necessary in order to produce the best results. It is all very well to assert, I am brave, I am industrious, I am active, etc., etc. But if the work stops there, it remains only 1/3 done. It is true that these affirmations and autosuggestions undoubtedly do stimulate and develop mental faculties and brain centers and play an important part in character building. But in order that they may be used to the best advantage, there must be visualization, and there should be a certain physical acting out of the mental suggestion or affirmation. There must be seeing and doing as well as saying. Mental states and physical expression. You will remember what I said in my lesson on mental suggestion regarding the fact that mental states take form in physical action, and its twin truth that physical action produces mental states. It is a case of action and reaction in both instances. For instance, if you will start in to feel angry and keep it up a little while, even though the emotion is assumed for the experiment, you will find that your brows will form into a frown and that your hands will clench and your jaws will fasten into a savage bite. You know this to be true, of course. But then, on the other hand, if you will assume the above-mentioned physical characteristics accompanying anger and will keep them up earnestly for a short time, you will find yourself actually feeling angry. And the same thing is true of the feelings and actions of pleasure. Think intently of some pleasant thing, and you will find your face breaking into an expression of pleasure. You will smile, your eyes will twinkle, and you will manifest all the outward characteristics of pleasure. And on the other hand, if you will throw yourself into the part and will smile and manifest all the outward signs of pleasure, you will find yourself beginning to feel happy, jolly, and pleasant in a short time. I have seen a sign bearing the single word smile in big letters cause people to change their mental states in a few moments. They would take the suggestion, and being amused at the sign, they would begin to smile. Then the smile's physical actions would react upon their minds, and they would begin to feel good, and so on. How physical actions induce mental states. I defy anyone to manifest the physical actions of any particular emotion of feeling earnestly and actively for a short time, without the corresponding mental state actually manifesting itself. Go into a business house manifesting the outward signs of good nature, confidence, self-reliance, etc., and you will not only impress others by suggestion, but you will also impress yourself, and you will begin to actually feel the thing that you have been acting out. Go into the same place manifesting the outward appearance of failure, lack of confidence, fear, etc., and not only will your suggestions be taken up by the others, but you will sink deeper and deeper into the mental state you are acting out. I have known people to acquire a masterful, confident, radiant character by a systematic and persisting acting out of the part, their second nature, so acquired, growing stronger than their original nature. The exercise of the faculty in this way developed the brain cells in the proper area, and the people were indeed made over. I know men who, when feeling blue or discouraged, will always force a smile to their faces, and in a short time they will regain their accustomed and desired cheerful state. An interesting illustration. I have known at least one man to rouse feelings of stern determination by similar methods. This man was in a position in which there would frequently arise the necessity for the manifestation of the most determined sternness and an almost angry display of will. Well, the man in question was by nature a good-natured, easygoing, kindly person, and he found it almost impossible to manifest the desired qualities upon the occasions mentioned. But one day, he was roused to a state of angry, determined sternness by a most annoying exhibition of careless action in the office, which, although soon settled, left him with the physical reflex of the mental state just experienced. Before this physical condition had passed away, there arose, unexpectedly, a case of genuine necessity for the exhibition of the stern, determined action mentioned in the first place. Meeting the man to whom this attitude must be manifested, our man found that, much to his surprise, he displayed a wonderful degree of the desired trait and gave the other man a talking to that made his hair stand on end and brought the desired result instanter. No one was more surprised at this occurrence than our man, and after it was all over he tried to figure it out, and he did. He came to the conclusion that when he was manifesting the physical conditions of the mental state, it required but a trifling effort to induce the state itself. In fact, the state came almost automatically. He had discovered by accident a well-established psychological law, and he made use of it ever after. Thereafter, whenever he had to work himself into a state, as he called it, he would walk about his office a few moments before he would see the other man, and during his walk he would bite hard and protrude his jaw. He would frown and clench his fist and make his eyes glare, etc., etc., and before long he would feel himself in the proper mood to see the other man and give him the necessary laying out. The plan worked like a charm. The sequel and the moral. I almost hate to tell you the sequel. However, our good-natured, easy man so developed these opposite qualities by this practice that in a few years he was known as a man to be dreaded by those who had occasion to receive treatment at his hands. And his whole nature seemed to have changed, and even his best friends would then hesitate to call him easy or good-natured. He had made himself over, that's all. And from this story, you may build up a whole process of character building if you have sufficient imagination and ingenuity. For the principle is the same in all cases. Character is plastic and may be molded at will by intelligent methods, but it takes more than holding the thought to do it. One must learn to act out the part desired until it becomes second nature. The secret of making yourself over. I wonder how many of you will realize what a wonderful field is here opened out for you if you will follow the idea taught by the past few pages. How many of you will realize that I have herein given you the secret of making yourself over? I wish I could fairly pound into you this truth. When I think of what many of you are, and then of what you might be, if you will realize the inner truth and importance of what I have just told you, well then, I feel like printing the tale in big, black face type and capital letters, so that I could make you read it. But if you haven't gumption enough to catch on to the idea that I'm presenting to you, I cannot help it. It's your loss, not mine. Practical use, not mere amusement. What in the world is the sense of you people paying me $1 for this book if you do not intend to put into practice what I'm teaching you? I have given you in these lessons information worth hundreds, yes, thousands of dollars to you if you will proceed to put them into practice. But the whole book isn't worth 2 cents to you if you merely read it idly and then after saying it certainly is wonderful, forget all about it and what I have said. Well now, that's all along that line. I have scolded you and have relieved myself of a certain amount of righteous indignation, and now I shall proceed with my lesson. I haven't charged you for the scolding pages. I just throw them in extra, at my own expense. But honest now, some of you people do need someone to get after you with a good stuffed club once in a while. You're asleep. Wake up and make yourself over. Opinion of an eminent authority. I think that the facts and principles above stated are self-evident and need little or no backing up by authorities. But I think I will give you a quotation or two to help fasten the idea in your minds. Professor Halleck says, by restraining the expression of an emotion, we can frequently throttle it. By inducing an expression, we can often cause its allied emotion. I wish that every one of you would commit the above words to memory. They are golden. By expression, Professor Halleck, of course, means the physical manifestation or expression, the physical action which springs from the emotion. A strong statement. Professor William James has this to say along the same line. Refuse to express a passion and it dies. Count 10 before venting your anger, and its occasion seems ridiculous. Whistling to keep up your courage is no more figure of speech. On the other hand, sit all day in a moping posture, sigh, and reply to everything with a dismal voice, and your melancholy lingers. There is no more valuable precept in moral education than this. As all of us who have experience know, if we wish to conquer undesirable emotional tendencies in ourselves, we must assiduously, and in the first instance cold-bloodedly, go through the outward movements of those contrary dispositions which we wish to cultivate. Smooth the brow, brighten the eye, contract the dorsal rather than ventral aspect of the frame, and speak in a major key. Pass the genial compliment, and your heart must indeed be frigid if it does not gradually thaw. Aren't those words fine? Read them over several times so as to be sure you grasp their full meaning. How to cultivate or restrain mental qualities. If you wish to cultivate a quality in which you are deficient, you must think about it, dream about it, concentrate upon it, live it out in your thoughts as a daydream or mental picture. Hold the visualized mental image of it always with you, and last, and equally as important, if not more so, act out the physical manifestations of it. Play the part out. Act your part earnestly, ardently, constantly, eagerly, steadily. On the other hand, if you wish to repress a quality, the best way to do it is to cultivate the opposite quality, and the undesirable quality will be crowded out. Do you see this last? Think over it. If you wish to get rid of darkness in a room, you don't have to shovel it out. Just open the window and let a little sunshine in. Do you see what I mean now? Professor James has told you the same thing in the quotation given a few moments ago. It is a psychological law. Kill the negative by cultivating the positive. That's the rule. But don't forget to act out the part. The law of autosuggestion. What is called autosuggestion or self-suggestion is one of the most active agencies employed in mind building. Autosuggestion covers all the various forms of affirmations, denials, statements, etc., employed by the several New Thought schools and is the underlying principle of all forms of self-impression. Self-impression would be a better name than any of these terms, for it described the process exactly. One impresses his mind with certain ideas, suggestions, feelings, and mental states. There is a dual aspect of mind which enables one to play two parts at the same time, viz. 1, the part of teacher or master, and 2, the part of scholar or pupil. One may charge his mind with the task of waking him up at a certain time in the morning, and he wakes up. Or he may charge his mind to remember a certain thing, and he remembers it. This form of self-mastery may be carried to great lengths, and one may bid his mind collect data regarding certain subjects from amidst its heterogeneous collection of mental odds and ends of knowledge, and then bid it combine the information into a systemic form, and the mind will so act, and the combined information will be at hand when needed. I find myself doing this almost unconsciously when I start to write a book. Fact after fact and illustrations appearing at their proper time and place. The field of self-impression has just had its outer edges explored. There's a great region of mentation here awaiting some of you. The effect of repetition. And so, this auto-suggestion is a case of say I to myself, says I. And the queer thing is that if you will impress your mind sufficiently, strongly, and with sufficient repetition, you will find it taking the impression and acting upon it. Repetition is a great thing in auto-suggestion. You remember the case of the man who told a certain lie so often that he got to actually believing it himself? Well, repeated auto-suggestion works along the same psychological lines. Hearing a thing impressed upon it sufficiently often, it takes it as a fact and proceeds to act it out accordingly. Constant information and statement made to oneself will manifest in actual conditions. The value of autosuggestion. Many a person has changed his whole physical and mental condition by a careful, persistent course of autosuggestion. Of course, if one combines the mental image or visualization process with the autosuggestion, he will obtain a doubly efficacious result. And if, in addition to these two, he will practice acting out the part along physical lines, he will reap a tenfold harvest of results. These three forms combined, employed, and persisted in, will work miracles in anyone. Illustrative instances. For instance, if one suffers from fear in meeting other persons, an abnormal timidity of bashfulness, commonly called self-consciousness, the course for him to pursue would be to brace himself up with constant affirmations or autosuggestions of fearlessness. Then he should visualize himself as absolutely fearless. Then he should endeavor to reproduce the physical appearance and outward demeanor and acting out of the part of the fearless man. And thus he will gradually develop into that which he desires. His ideal becomes real, his dream a fact, his feelings actions, his actions feelings. And this rule and example will hold good along the whole line of personal qualities or characteristics. All come under the rule. The same principle works in all cases. Get the principle and you have the secret of the whole thing. The old and new methods. But here I'm going to suggest a little variation along the lines of autosuggestion, which I have found to act admirably in this class of case. The ordinary autosuggestion or affirmation works along these lines, viz., one affirms or suggests to himself something like this: I am fearless, I fear nothing, I am courageous, I am filled with confidence, etc., etc. Now this is fine. No one who knows anything about the subject will dispute the fact that a man holding the thought that I am fearless will be filled with courage and will manifest the qualities that he is claiming for himself. I have tried these things on myself and others, and I can unhesitatingly testify as to their efficiency. It is the old tried and oft-taught plan of affirmation or autosuggestion that has worked wonders for so many people. And I positively advise you to follow this plan of holding the thought and making the affirmations or autosuggestions in the first person when you are going into action. As a bracer, it is unexcelled. But there is something else not so old, and here it is. My new method. You will remember that in my lesson on mental therapeutics, in that part devoted to self-healing, I told you to imagine yourself as John Smith, or whatever your name may be, that is, as a separate person, and then to treat him as such, just as you would a patient. While this plan also works admirably in cases of character building by autosuggestion. While the I am, etc. plan is good as a bracer, and when going into action, still this last mentioned plan of mine operates far better when it comes down to steady treatment of one's self for mental failings, weaknesses, and character building. Just try both plans yourself and see if I'm not right. But practice my plan a little until you acquire the knack before finally deciding the matter. Here is how it works in practice. How it works in practice. Suppose you wish to cultivate fearlessness in place of the fear thought that has bothered you so much. Well, in addition to the mental image or visualization and the never to be forgotten acting out the part, you wish to try autosuggestion. The old way, you remember, was to claim to yourself, I am fearless, etc. Now, my new way of treating yourself is to imagine that you are treating some other person for the same trouble. Sit down and give a regular treatment. Image yourself as sitting before your personality, the central mind giving a treatment to the John Smith part of you, the individual treatment, the personality. You see? Well, the individual, that's you, says to the personality of John Smith, here, John Smith, you must brace up and do better. You are fearless, fearless, fearless. I tell you, you are fearless. You are courageous and brave and bold. You are confident and self-reliant. You fear nothing. You are filled with strong, positive, mentative energy, and you are going to manifest it. You are going to grow more and more positive every day. You are positive this minute. Do you hear me? Positive this very minute. You are positive, fearless, confident, self-reliant right now, and you will grow more and more so every day. Remember now, you are positive, 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 fearless, 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 etc., etc., etc. The result of this practice. You will find that by this plan, you will be able to fairly pour in the positive suggestions to the John Smith part of you, and the latter will take them with the same effect as if there were two persons instead of one. And there are two persons, according to the occult teachings, the individual and the personality. This plan will afford a welcome variation to the monotonous I am this and I am that methods which have caused so many once ardent followers of the new thoughts to throw up the whole matter in disgust. This wholesale I am this and that business has tired many a good soul who thereby let go just when in sight of attainment. To such and to all others I would say, try this new plan. Learn to actually treat yourself by this method, and you will be surprised at the rapid progress you will make as compared with the old plan. But don't forget to impress upon the John Smith part of you that he must hold the mental image or visualization, and that he must start right in to act out the part. And don't let him get away from this. Insist upon it. Cross-examine him about it before each treatment, and hammer it into him hard. For, as our colored brother would say, he sure needs 'em all to carry him through. Try it on yourself and find out. Now, please experiment with this method on yourself and find out its wonderful possibilities by your own experience. Don't rest with my say-so, but prove it for yourself. When once you have found out just what this method will do for you, you will wonder that you had never thought of it before. You will cultivate a sense of individuality, which will recognize the personality as a plastic something that can be molded and shaped at your will by this treatment. And best of all, you will learn to know that the individual is you, and you are the individual, and that the personality is merely something that belongs to you. When you have reached this stage, you will have called to your hand the forces of the great mentative energy, and will indeed have a right to call yourself positive and an active center of power in the great ocean of power. And all this will have been brought about by this new plan of say it to myself, says I. Is it not worthwhile? Then start in to make yourself over as you will. individual requirements. But now comes the question, in what respect shall I make myself over? And this is a question that I cannot answer for you in these lessons, because each one of my readers would have to be answered differently, and I would have to understand the requirements of each particular case before I could so answer. But, after all, each and every man or woman who studies these lessons has a very good idea of his or her particular strong or weak points of character. Each one knows just about what qualities need to be strengthened and built up, and just which ones need to be restrained. Every person knows his shortcomings in the lines of personal qualities or character, for he or she has been forced to this knowledge by coming in contact with the world. If you are considering the question of character architecture in your own case, I would advise a strict self-examination with a pencil and paper, in which you must set down the degree of development of each particular quality, with fear or favor toward yourself. When you have done this, you will know just how to proceed. You will have given yourself a mental diagnosis. I herewith give you a general list of qualities, etc., as an aid in this work of self-examination as a basis of mental architecture. In using it, ask yourself the question, what degree of this quality do I possess? And answer the question on honor. The faculties of the mind. Below I give you a list of the faculties usually given in works on phrenology, which will aid you very materially in preparing your report on yourself. Each faculty relates to some quality of character possessed by you, and regarding which you are asking yourself the question mentioned above. Sexuality, friendship, love of life, physical appetites, cautiousness, firmness, faith, ingenuity, imitation, sense of shape, sense of color, sense of locality, musical taste, comparison, domestic qualities, love of places, fighting qualities, acquisitiveness, love of praise, integrity, veneration, ideality, mirthfulness, sense of size, sense of order, memory, language, judging human nature, parental love, stick-to-itiveness, determination, secretiveness, self-esteem, hope, sympathy, sublimity, observation, sense of weight, sense of number, sense of time, originality, blarney or agreeableness. Building the faculties. Every one of the above-mentioned faculties or qualities may be increased or decreased by the practice of the methods given in this lesson. Auto-suggestion, visualization, and acting out the part. That triple method of character architecture will enable anyone to make himself over in any one or more of the above qualities. You will, of course, always remember that the methods named act in the direction of stimulating the growth of the brain cells in the particular center, areas, and regions in which the particular faculty or quality is manifested. The immediate cause of growth of the brain cells is the desire of the individual manifesting itself along physical lines, coupled with that law of nature which causes increased physical or mental growth in accordance with necessity or need. The earnest desire, heightened by visualization and auto-suggestion, stimulates the brain centers manifesting the desired qualities, and by so doing causes a more rapid production of new cells and the greater development of the existing ones. Then the acting out the part, with its physical manifestations, creates a direct demand upon the brain for means of manifestation, and the brain responds by growing additional cells to meet the demand. A natural law. There is a natural law that tends to furnish the organism that which is needed for its development and necessities. The horse has evolved from a three-toed animal into a one-toed one in response to the demands of its environments and the necessities of its life. Birds of prey have claws and beaks adapted to their needs and wants. Beasts of prey have great teeth, claws, and shape of body adapted to their wants and necessities. And so it is all through nature. But remember this, that animals constantly change as their environments alter, for nature always is ready to supply that which is demanded by the necessity of the organism. The why of it. Evolution gives us many convincing illustrations of this fact, which I regret not being able to mention here. If a part of the body is brought into unaccustomed use, it becomes tired at first, and then nature sends to its relief increased nutrition and development, so that in time it can meet the new requirements with ease. And so it is in this matter of the brain cells. Make a demand upon nature for increased power along certain lines, and she responds. And the way to make the demand for new brain cells in order to manifest certain qualities to a higher degree is to follow the methods given you herein: autosuggestion, visualization, and acting out the part. I trust that you now understand not only the how of this subject, but also the why of it. It is impossible in the space of a lesson to give detailed instruction regarding the development of each separate faculty of the mind. That would require a good-sized book by itself. But I have given you the general principles and directions, and you should be able to work out the rest of the problem yourself. I will, however, give you special directions for the development of the particular qualities most necessary to the positive magnetic man mentioned in my lesson on personal influence. That special instruction falls naturally within the field and scope of this lesson. I will condense a mass of this information within the remaining pages of this course. Mental architecture of children. Before proceeding to this last mentioned phase of the work, however, I wish to say that not only may one make himself over by the methods given, but he may make over other people by the same methods applied in the form of suggestive treatment. This is particularly true in the case of children whose characters are extremely plastic and who yield readily to constructive shaping and guidance. It is not necessary for me to go into this matter in detail, for in my lesson on mental suggestion and in my instruction in mental therapeutics, as well as in the present lesson, I have given the principles of such treatment and the methods of applying the same. I trust that every student of this course has paid sufficient attention to what has been taught to be able to understand and apply this form of suggestive treatment to others. What I have said about treating the John Smith part of you is true when you are actually treating others. The same principles apply. In addition to these, you may advantageously use treatments by mentative currents, which will tend to induce in the mind of the other person the desired mental states, which in time will result in the production of the new brain cells needed to establish the mental character and cure. In treating others for a change of character, proceed exactly as you would in treating them for a physical ailment. The principle is the same, for the trouble arises from a similar underlying cause. In both cases, you are treating mind, remember. The qualities of the magnetic man. And now to the building up of the positive magnetic man. We have seen in the 4th lesson what he was like. And now we must try to make ourselves over to resemble him. The methods given in the present lesson apply to this work, of course. Let us now form a mental picture of the positive magnetic man and see what qualities he possesses, and then learn how to develop and cultivate those qualities. The magnetic desire. Well then, first, our magnetic man is possessed of a strong desire. He knows how to want a thing the right way. No mere wishing or sighing for a thing. When he wants a thing, he wants it. We all think that we want things, but the majority only want them in a half-hearted way. The flame of desire burns feebly and gives a little light or heat. One of the first things you will notice in coming in personal contact with the men who do things in the world is that they are filled with that intense, eager, longing, craving, hungry, ravenous desires that stirs them on the mighty effort and achievement, which makes them demand things instead of begging for them. Even among the animals that we speak of as strong and masterful, you will find that this desire quality is strong in them, so much so that it impresses itself in their every movement and action. And on the other hand, you will find a lack of that same quality in the species of animals that are preyed upon, hunted, and devoured by others. This class of weak, desired animals impress us as weak and spiritless. The hunger of desire. And so it is with men. No one ever did anything or got anything unless he was filled with a strong, hungry desire for that thing. If a man feels a hunger for attainment, just as he feels a hunger for his meals, he will make mighty efforts to satisfy that hunger. Just think of what you would do to satisfy a craving hunger. Well, these men feel the same way about other things for which they are hungry. Desire is a form of hunger, and the hungrier a man is for a thing, the more desire force will be manifested, and the greater efforts will he make to get that thing. Desire in many dresses. People have gotten into the habit of speaking and thinking of desire as an unworthy, low animal selfish quality. But they are seeing only a half-truth while thinking that they are seeing the whole thing. They dodge the question by speaking of high desires, aspiration, ambition, zeal, ardor, love, and a number of similar terms, but these things are merely our old friend desire with a new name. Let me give you a few words used in speaking of some form of desire. Here they are. Desire, wish, want, need, exigency, mind, inclination, leaning, bent, animus, partiality, penchant, predilection, propensity, willingness, liking, love, fondness, relish, longing, hankering, solicitude, anxiety, yearning, coveting, aspiration, ambition, eagerness, zeal, ardor, appetite, appetency, hunger, thirst, keenness, longing, craving, etc., etc. Quite a formidable list, isn't it? Desire underlies all action and restraint of action. The truth is that all of the feelings that incite one to action of any kind or sort are forms of desire. Without desire, one would cease absolutely from action. Preceding every action, there must be desire, either conscious or unconscious. Even those people who make a virtue of renunciation of desire and who claim to have conquered desire absolutely are acting in response to a more subtle form of desire. How is this, you ask? Well, simply because they are carrying out a desire not to desire certain other things. Desire is at the bottom of the renunciation, just as it is at the bottom of the very desires they wish to renounce. This must be so always, for desire is a fundamental natural law and is always manifest. Not only in the doing of things is desire manifest, but also in the refraining from doing the same things. One man desires to smoke, another desires not to do so. Desire in both cases. Lack of desire to do a certain thing simply means a desire to pursue an opposite course of conduct and action, and so it goes. Desire is manifest in every action and refraining from action, so long as one has the capacity for action. Universality of desire. Nothing has even been done, created, or manifested without desire. The very atoms manifest desire in their combinations, and so all the universe has been built up through the operation of the law of desire and the law of will, both of which are phases of the one law. Desire underlies all life. It rests in the very heart of life itself, and the greater the manifestation of vitality, the greater the force of desire. But remember always that there are wise desires and unwise desires. And the positive magnetic man learns to distinguish between the wise and the unwise desires, between the good and the bad ones, and governs himself accordingly. He examines his desires, and picking out the good and wise ones, he discards the bad and unwise ones. Then he proceeds to develop and build up the one he has selected. How to develop desire force. And how does our man develop his desire when desire in itself is not a separate mental faculty, but instead manifests through and in each faculty? Well, he proceeds to hold up to it the mental image of the things to be desired, and the desire force within him flows forth and manifests more and more energy according to the stimulus. Desire force is always inherent in the person, just as is willpower, but both need an incentive to action, a stimulus to manifestation. It is a well-known law of psychology that desire flows out and manifests itself in response to an object. This object of desire is always something that affords pleasure, satisfaction, or content to the individual, or else that will rid him of pain, discontent, discomfort, of dissatisfaction, either immediate or remote in both instances, and sometimes indirectly, that is, the pleasure or pain may be occasioned by the pleasure or pain, immediate or remote, of some other person in which the original person is interested. Mental images awaken desire. The clearer the mental image of the object of desire, the greater will be the degree of desire manifested, all other things being equal. A child may be filled with discontent. It wants something, but does not know what it wants. Then the child thinks of toys, and it begins to want still harder. Then it sees a toy, and then its want becomes very intense. One may feel hungry in a degree, but when he sees some particular object of taste, the hunger becomes far more intense. And so it follows that if one will keep on presenting to his desire the suggestion and mental image of the object, then will the desire begin to burn more fiercely and strongly, and may be cultivated to almost any degree. We all know how one may awaken desire in another in this way, by means of suggestion, and by presenting the mental image of the object in conversation, etc. How many of us know to our cost how the sight of an unthought of thing makes us begin to hanker after it and long for it? The book agent plays upon this trait of character in us, and so does the department store man on bargain days and by his window displays. You will remember what I told you in the lesson on suggestion about the steps in salesmanship, the important point being to arouse desire in the customer, and what I said about the same thing in the case of the advertiser. This idea underlies all forms of suggestive influence and is manifest in the lives of every one of us every day of our lives. And if this be so, can you not see that by autosuggestion you may arouse the same degree of desire in yourselves that others arouse in you and you in others? The threefold method in desire. So then you see that our threefold method, autosuggestion, visualization, and acting out the part, will develop desire in you. In autosuggestion, along these lines, you must treat yourself as I have told you for desire. Tell the John Smith part of you how much he desires this or that, how much he aspires to this or that, how strong is his ambition for this and that, etc. Then visualize the object, that is, the thing desired, until you can see it plainly and clearly. See yourself in possession of or as having attained it. Keep this mental image always with you, for it will act powerfully in arousing your desire. Then act out the idea of you gaining headway and moving on to the possession or attainment. Cultivate the outward actions and demeanor of yourself as you can image yourself to be when you have attained it. If you are after success, then act out the part of the successful man. You need not be told why after what I have said. Why desire should be developed. In conclusion, I will again remind you that the object of this development of desire are 1, that your will may be called into play, and 2, that your desire force may be set into activity and thus begin in its drawing, attracting work. Read what I have said about desire force in the second lesson. Now, do not dismiss this part of the subject lightly. It is most important to you. Desire and will are the 2 phases of the underlying force, and you must develop both of them in order to get the best results. Keep the flame of right desire ever burning brightly. Feed its lamp with the ideas of the objects of desire by autosuggestion, visualization, and acting out. Remember my parting words about desire. The first thing in the direction of doing things are getting things, is to want the things hard enough. A strong, ardent, keen desire will clear away the undergrowth of the path of success. It will attract you to the people and things needed for its satisfaction, and will attract to you the people, things, circumstances, environments, etc., needed for its satisfaction. Desire is the soul of the law of attraction. The magnetic will. And now let us consider the second attribute of our positive magnetic man. It is willpower. Our man is an example of living will. He is filled with the force of action. He is determined. He keeps his will on an object just as a machinist keeps his chisel on the hard metal, letting it bite in deeper and deeper until the desired impression and end is obtained. I have told you how the will is always set into operation by the urge of desire. When you develop and cultivate desire, you are doing much to cultivate willpower. So I need not repeat this part of the process. I have just told it to you under the head of desire. But there is another feature about the use of will which I must call to your attention. It is the feature of its determined application and manifestation. It is all very well to have a strong will, but it will avail you nothing unless you learn how to apply it. The secret of the resolute will. The secret of the resolute will lies in determination and persistency. And the first thing to be acquired is attention for attention. Writers on psychology will tell you that a tenacious attention is one of the strongest factors of a cultivated will. That is it. You must acquire tenacity of attention. You must acquire the art of patiently dwelling upon a thing until you accomplish your purpose. You must learn to do things thoroughly and completely. You must learn to concentrate your will upon a thing and not allow it to be distracted or to wander off until you do what you set out to do. You must cultivate stability, decision, perseverance, tenacity, and stick-to-itiveness. And you can do all of these things by the triple method given in these lessons. Each quality is capable of cultivation and development in the same way. You can do these things if you want to hard enough. First, stir up your desire to accomplish the task, the will that you shall do it, then do it. Thousands of others have done these things, and so may you if you are an individual and not a mere personal shadow. I shall now give you some advice regarding will development, to which I ask you to pay close attention. Habit and willpower. The first obstacle to be overcome in the work of cultivating willpower is to overcome the old habits of weak will and to replace them by new habits of strong will. This question of habit is a most important one, for we are all more or less slaves to habit. Habit is second nature, which is often much stronger than our ordinary natural impulses. In order to develop the dominant will, you must cultivate some new habits, and of these things I shall now speak. The following rules for the development of new habits will prove of great benefit to you if you will study them carefully and then put them into practice. Control the physical channels of expression. Rule 1. Get control of your physical channels of expression and master the physical expression connected with the mental state you are trying to develop. For instance, if you are trying to develop your will along the lines of self-reliance, confidence, fearlessness, etc., the first thing for you to do is to get a perfect control of the muscles by which the physical manifestations or expressions of these feelings are shown. Get control of the muscles of your shoulders that you may throw them back manfully. Look out for the stooping attitude of lack of confidence. Then get control of the muscles by which you hold your head up, with eyes front, gazing the world fearlessly in the face. Get control of the muscles of the legs by which you will be enabled to walk firmly as the positive man should. Get control of the vocal organs by which you may speak in the resonant, vibrant tones which compel attention and inspire respect. Get yourself well in hand physically in order to manifest these outward forms of will, and you will clear a path for the mind to manifest itself, and will make the work of the will much easier. But it takes will to do these things, and you must be prepared to use it. Keep your attention on these outward forms of expression until you acquire the habit and make it second nature. Learn to concentrate. Rule number 2, learn to concentrate. By so doing, you will be able to focus your will upon any object desired and thus get the greatest effect. In using the will, endeavor to make it one-pointed, as the Orientals say. That is, have for the object of the will one main object, and then focus the will firmly upon that object. Cast from your mind all ideas and thoughts not in harmony with the one idea upon which you are concentrating your will. In the beginning, it will be well to avoid all persons, environments, etc., calculated to distract you from the main idea. But after a bit, you will be able to interpose a resistance to these distracting things and banish them from you by a mental command. While acquiring will in this way, you will find that it often takes even more will to turn away from these outside objects than to follow your main object. You must learn to master these temptations, even if in so doing you must needs act like Ulysses, who made his companions stop up their ears with wax lest they be fascinated by the song of the sirens. Acquire the will habit. Rule 3. In acquiring a will habit, use every occasion in order to repeat the effort of the will along the lines of the habit. Give your will much exercise. Every time you do a certain thing, the easier does it become to repeat it, for the habit becomes more firmly established. Habit is a form of impression, and the oftener you sink the dye of the will into the wax of the mind, the deeper is the impression. Exercise, exercise, exercise. Practice, practice, practice. The first fight is the hardest. Rule number 4. The greatest struggle is at the beginning of the practice or formation of a new will habit. Here one has to fight with all his might. But the first battle well won, the after fights moderate and finally become mere skirmishes. There it behooves one to gird on his armor firmly and grasp his sword with strength at this first fight. Try to stop smoking or drinking, for instance, and you will find that 3/4 of the entire struggle is condensed in the fight of the first week, if not the first day. Remember the case of Rip Van Winkle with his "well, this glass don't count"? He never could get started, and beware of a single slip at the start, for such slips weaken one more than he can regain in a whole day of success. After having made up your will to acquire a habit, you must not allow a single slip for this reason. A well-known writer on the subject has compared these slips to a ball of cord which one is endeavoring to wind. Each drop of the ball unwinds more than many windings can replace. Acquiring second nature. Rule 5. Endeavor to fix the habit as a strong mental impression by any and every means that suggest themselves to you. For when this habit becomes firmly impressed upon your mind, you will find it most natural and easy to act along its lines, and most difficult to break away from it or to act contrary to it. You are building second nature, remember. Judge, weigh, and measure. Then go ahead. Rule number 6. Look before you leap, and be sure you're right, then go ahead. Always take a good look at a thing before plunging in. Give it the benefit of your judgment, and do not be carried away by the judgment of others. Use your reason and judgment. That's why you have them. But after once having decided that a thing is right for you to do, then you must learn to go ahead to the finish. Learn to place your hand upon the plow and look not backward. Learn to control your willpower and do not let it leap into action until you are sure it is right to do so. And all of this means rigid self-control and mastery of one's moods as well as one's passions and emotions. Guard yourself against yourself, and also guard your desire from the influences of others, for through your desires your will is called into action. Children, savages, and undeveloped individuals manifest little or no mastery over their desires, but allow themselves to be affected by every little wave from within or without, and then let their will fly into action in response thereto. The individual learns to inhibit, that is, to check, restrain, hold back, forbid, prohibit, etc., emotional states and feelings. By so doing, he will hold his willpower under control for use when it is advisable. Pull the trigger of your willpower yourself after you have taken deliberate aim and at some object worthwhile. Do not allow others to pull it for you, nor do you yourself pull it in response to a whim, a dare, an unrestrained feeling. A useful rule along these lines is given by Professor Hofting, who says, even if we cannot prevent a feeling from arising, we may possibly prevent it from spreading by inhibiting the organic movement which accompanies it, the indulgence in which augments it. In other words, retrain the physical action and the feeling dies. Do you see how this idea of physical expression and acting out runs shoulder to shoulder with the idea of mental states all through the subject of psychology? Fill your mind with good mental pictures. Rule number 7. Keep the mind filled with mental pictures of the thing which you wish to become a habit. For by so doing, you are constantly adding oil to the flame of desire, and desire is the cause of the manifestation of will. The feminine desire asks, and the masculine will seeks to gratify the request of his mate in any direction indicated by her. Therefore, the more she sees what she wants, the more she asks, and the more she asks, the more eager does he become to please her. The apple was shown Eve, then she told Adam it was good and asked him to take a bite, and then Adam ate and the mischief was done. But this rule works for good as well as for bad. It's a poor rule that won't work for both ways, but the principle is the same in both good and evil cases. Act out the habit. Rule 8. Act out the habit as often as possible and as well as possible. Learn to go through the motions until the part becomes perfect and easily performed. I needn't tell you students the reason for this again. It should be an old story with you by this time. Practice doing disagreeable things. Rule 9. Practice doing disagreeable things. This will strengthen the will wonderfully, for reasons that should be apparent to every student. What would be the condition of your muscles if you never had to use them? And what will be the condition of your will if you never had to exercise it by doing something unpleasant or disagreeable? Anyone, even the weakest, can do a thing along the lines of no resistance, pleasant, agreeable things, without opposition or resistance. But it takes a true man or woman, a true individual, to do things against resistance from without or from within. And when one has learned to master himself, that is, his own moods and feelings, then he is able to master the outside world. And not until then either. Therefore, often set yourself an unpleasant or disagreeable tasks to perform, for by so doing you acquire mental muscle, which is but another name for will. Professor James, the eminent psychologist, advises his readers to systematically exercise themselves in the direction of doing some particular things for no other reason than that they would rather not do it. Even if the task be nothing more than rising and giving up a seat in a streetcar when you want to retain it very much indeed. Professor James compares this exercise to the paying the premiums on insurance on one's property, one is laying up reserve resources for a day of need. He tells us that a man who trains himself in this way can be counted upon in any emergency. He may count on himself to manifest willpower. As Professor Hollick says, in speaking of such a man, while another would be still crying over spilt milk, the professor of such a will has already begun to milk another cow. The men who have attained great success have, in nearly every case, so trained their wills that they could undertake a difficult or disagreeable plan with a minimum of effort. They had acquired the habit. When one learns to say yes or no to himself, he can say yes or no to others with the greatest force. Cultivate fixity of purpose. Rule number 10. Cultivate fixity of purpose. The man of strong will must learn to see an object ahead of him and then to want it hard enough and then to fix his will upon it and hold it there while he moves to it in as straight a line as possible. But no matter how he may have to swerve from this straight line of approach by unforeseen obstacles, nor how many times he may stumble, he still always remembers what he is after, and he keeps after it. The shifting, changeable, weathercock sort of men manifest but little will and accomplish little or nothing. The successful men are those who know what they want and never forget it. It may take them some time to find out just what they do want, but when once they find it out, they hold firmly to it to the end with an invincible determination and unswerving purpose. And these qualities always win in the long run, if for no other reason than because so few possess them, and the majority of men get tired of the struggle and drop out of the race. It's the fellow with the staying qualities that pulls through in the end, no matter how much of a start the others may have had on him in the beginning. Concentrate and cultivate stick-to-itiveness. Develop these mental faculties. I shall now briefly run over the mental faculties most necessary of development in the case of the man who wishes to gain the magnetic will, and I shall add a few words of advice regarding the development of each of the said qualities. The faculty of stability. 1. Continuity. This faculty has been so named by the phrenologist and defined as the faculty that enables a man to stick to it until it is done. That gives him patience to complete his task. That gives him stability. Its lack makes a man restless, changeable, shifting, disconnected, scattered, unstable, and unreliable. To cultivate this faculty, follow the threefold method in the direction of concentrating, dwelling upon, and sticking to a matter once undertaken, doing thorough work, and fighting against distracting ideas and things or temptations to make a change. The faculty of the will to live. 2. Vitality. This faculty is defined by phrenologists as one that makes a person tenacious of life and which causes him to fight off death, sickness, or weakness. This is a necessary faculty for the magnetic man to develop, for by so doing, he not only becomes stronger, but also imparts a certain quality of strength and resistance to his personality that will be felt by others. As an example, contrast the fight for life in an animal of the cat family and then the lack of it in a sheep or rabbit. Then think which of them is more respected and regarded in the world of animals. By all means, cultivate the resolute fight for life that is manifested by all strong creatures. Try the threefold method along the lines of holding on to life and manifesting the will to live. The faculty of courage. 3. Combativeness. The phrenological faculty manifests in the direction of resistance, opposition, courage, boldness, defensiveness, defiance, spirit, self-protection, determination, let me alone, get out of my way, etc. It goes with all strong characters. It is true that its perversion renders one a nuisance and a quarrelsome and brawling person, and such state is to be avoided. But its absence makes of one a human doormat, and the world proceeds to wipe its feet on him. The strong magnetic man must have this faculty well developed and also well controlled. It must be the case of the soft voice and the big stick, of which we have heard so much of late. The world loves the brave man and hates a coward, and this means mental bravery and mental cowardice principally in these days of mental struggle. By all means, learn to stand up like a man, and, looking the world firmly and calmly in the face, say in the words of the old verse, "Come on, come all, this rock shall fly from its firm base as soon as I." Don't be a brawler, but don't be a weakling. Avoid the rabbit and sheep mental attitude. Develop this faculty by the threefold method along the lines of debate, argument, mental conflict, mental resistance, asserting your individuality, insisting upon your rights, self-confidence, self-assertion, and I can and I will. The barrier breaking faculty. 4. Destructiveness. This name is not well chosen, in my opinion, by the phrenologist, but I shall not attempt to change it here. It is used by them to indicate the faculty that manifests in determination to overcome obstacles, beating down resistance, brushing away barriers, making headway, pushing to the front, clearing away the underbrush, pushing through the crowd, holding your own, etc. Its perversion renders one a hated man, and one who is not sufficiently regardful of the rights of others, and whom it becomes the duty of society to restrain. But still, it is a quality that is needed by the magnetic man, lest he allow himself to be walked over with impunity, outraged, and treated with contempt by the world, or which will cause him to be pushed aside and imposed upon. Its absence also causes one to be overcome with impotence when obstacles confront him, or resistance shows itself. Its absence causes one to be a whining I can't person, and also causes one to be too much subject to precedence, pretended authority, etc., and kills off his originality. To develop this faculty, use the threefold method along the lines of breaking new mental ground, striking out into new paths, breaking down barriers, overcoming restraint, holding your own, pushing to the front even if you do have to elbow the crowd, etc. The getting and keeping faculty. 5. Acquisitiveness. This term is used by phrenologists to indicate that the faculty which manifests in getting, acquiring, possessing, drawing to oneself, obtaining and securing desired things, etc., it may be perverted into miserliness, penuriousness, meanness, hoggishness, etc. But nevertheless, its proper use and development is necessary to the positive man. Unless one has a desire to have and hold, he will not be apt to make any progress in the world. One must want to get things before he will act energetically. And so far as money is concerned, while I freely admit the evils of an extreme greed and desire in this respect, yet I am just as fully convinced that a man must possess a certain amount of this money-wanting quality in order to make him an active center of force. For when one wants money, he really wants the things that money buys. Money stands for nearly all that is necessary for a man's well-being and substance. money in itself is nothing. A man is a fool who loves or seeks it for itself. But it is also a symbol of almost everything else, and without it, he can get practically nothing else. So, just as I think it justifiable and proper for a plant to desire and seek and draw to itself the sustenance of the soil, air, water, and sunlight, so do I think it proper, desirable, and praiseworthy for a man to desire and insist upon drawing to himself the proper sustenance of life. And money means just that, to the sane man, and nothing more. The people who decry this desire for money are principally those who either one, have failed to accumulate money themselves by reason of lacking the necessary qualities. The really unfortunate ones do not join in the condemnation of desire. Or two, those who have inherited money of which they did not know the labor, excitement, or satisfaction of making it for themselves, and who therefore grow rightly disgusted at the money which they did not have to use their heads or hands to acquire. These people are like those who take no exercise and get indigestion at the sight of a good dinner, while those who have worked well come to the dinner with a good appetite and cannot understand the sick feeling of the others. It is the law of nature that makes both of these classes of people sick at the sight of that for which they have not worked for. Or three, that class of parasites who live by the hard work of others, doing nothing themselves, and deeming themselves far above those muckers or money grubbers who work and toil and labor to support these parasites. Among this last mentioned class, the parasites, I cheerfully include that class of pampered wealthy women who take no part in the world's work, even refusing to make their own beds or sweep their own rooms. These good souls often think that they are living the higher life in this way, and they consider money as something sordid and unworthy of us who dwell on the higher spiritual or artistic planes of thought. They look down upon their husbands or fathers who are right in the thick of the money-making madness which is made necessary by the demands of these very high souls for sealskin sacks, diamonds, automobiles, etc. This last mentioned class, the female parasites of society, are the ones really responsible for much of the inordinate and excessive development of the faculty of acquisitiveness, noticeably in the world today. They led their beautiful lives far above the roar and bustle of the mart, but every dollar that procures them this privilege comes from the same desire for money, which they hypocritically decry. For very few normal men will work themselves to death to pile up accumulations for themselves alone. It is always for those dependent upon me. And in this class of parasites, I, of course, include those sap-headed youths who, with their cigarettes sticking between their foolish teeth, speaking pityingly of their fathers who are down among the muckers, grubbing for money. I'm not trying to preach a sermon, but this hypocrisy makes me sick. They're all after money. Every blessed mother's son and daughter of them, in one way or another. And what's the use of denying it? Some day we may have better economic conditions. I pray to God that we may. But until that time, all of us must chase the nimble dollar to the best of our ability. For unless a man does this thing, then shall he not eat, nor be clothed, nor be sheltered, nor books, nor music, nor anything else that makes life worth living for one who thinks and feels. Therefore, I feel justified in saying to you, develop a normal degree of acquisitiveness if you wish to amount to anything in the world's work. Develop it by the threefold method, along the lines of realization of what it means and what it will do for you in this stage of the world's economic evolution. But don't be a hog, and while you're getting, get all you can. But give the other fellow a chance. Live and let live. The faculty of keeping your own secrets. 6. Secretiveness. This is the name given by the phrenologist to that faculty that manifests as policy, tact, concealment, self-repression, self-restraint, etc. Its perversion leads to deceit, double-dealing, duplicity, lying, false living, etc. But a certain amount of it is necessary for the magnetic man, lest he fall into the error of wearing his heart on his sleeve. Transparent simplicity, loose-mouthedness, babbling, lacking ordinary prudence, indiscretions, etc. Develop this faculty by the threefold method along the lines of tact, diplomacy, reticence, cautiousness, politeness, etc. The main object being to acquire a faculty of keeping your own secrets, keeping your affairs to yourself, avoiding that leakiness that has ruined so many men and women. Regarding this, and women, I would say that my business experience has taught me that in spite of the alleged secret telling of women, it is true that the women stenographers in an office are far less liable to disclose their employer's secrets than are the men employees. And then again, while a woman may have a tendency to pass on a secret, still she knows how to keep certain secrets that concern herself or the man she loves or the child she loves in a manner and in ways that cause a man's hair to raise in bewilderment. And why should I say anything about this matter anyway? Am I not telling you the secrets of mental magic in these lessons? The faculty of prudence. 7. Cautiousness. This faculty manifests in carefulness, prudence, watchfulness, foresight, judgment, etc. Perverted, it leads to timidity, irresolution, etc. But a certain amount of it is necessary. One should learn to use judgment and reason, to be sure he is right before going ahead. If deficient in this quality, develop it by the threefold method along the lines of care, prudence, watchfulness, thought, use of judgment, etc., and by looking before you leap. If you have too much of it, restrain by similar methods along the lines of boldness and daring, don't worry, take a risk on it, etc., and a general spirit of not crossing a bridge until you come to it. The faculty of what will people think. 8. Approbativeness. This faculty manifests in a desire for approval, praise, flattery, fame, show, and ceremony connected with one's personality, etc. It is seen frequently in a perverted sense. Very few of us need to develop this quality. We have enough, or more than enough of it already. If you wish to restrain this faculty, you may use the threefold method along the lines of indifference to public approval or opinion. What does it matter anyway? They say, what do they say? Let them say. Do not worry about it. Your friends will not care, and your enemies will persist anyway, so what's the use? What care I for the opinions of the crowd anyway? They are 95% fools at the best, etc., etc., etc. Learn to live your own life, and stand upon your own feet. Other people would like to even breathe for you if you would let them, but say scat to them and shake them off when they bother you. You've got to live your own life. And why bother with the people who are always telling you you mustn't do it this way, do it as I say, when their own lives are glaring examples of the folly of their way? Pick out a right project, follow a right course, and let the crowd mind its own business, if it will, and if it won't, forget it. You will find it ready enough to shower favors upon you when you finally succeed. And do not be deceived by its praise or flattery. The same people who are singing your praises today will damn you tomorrow if occasion offers. They are throwing roses at you now. Tomorrow they may throw rocks with equal grace and delight. Don't be a slave to the crowd or its opinions. Make yourself master of it, if you would rule it. It is managed through its selfish fears and interest rather than through its love. It has a mean trick of turning on the thing it loves and tearing it to pieces, just as a female spider devours her mate. But when it fears, well then it lets you alone. Not high spiritual teaching, perhaps, but a bit of worldly wisdom. Shake off the crowd from your heels. You mind your own business and tell it to do the same. And look it in the eye while you are telling it too. It will understand you if you don't truckle to it. But never cringe to it, else it will rend you to pieces. The faculty of self-confidence. 9. Self-esteem. This is the faculty of self-respect, self-reliance, self-love, etc. Perverted, it means tyranny, superciliousness, imperiousness, hauteur, and other forms of egotism carried to extremes. This quality is necessary to be developed normally in the magnetic man. He must learn to respect himself, to value himself, rely upon himself, love himself, hold his head high, look to the world in the face, believe in himself, and take his own place in the world, without false modesty or shrinking. Develop it by the threefold method along the lines of realizing just what you are, a center of energy, power, and strength in the universal ocean of energy. Think of yourself in the word of Black Hawk, the Indian chieftain, who said to Jackson, "I am a man. Be a man among men, and insist upon the fact. Learn to say, I am. Feel that back of and under you is the great ocean of universal mind energy, and realize that you are of and in this wonderful thing. Believe in yourself. Love yourself. Look out for yourself. I tell you, students, I believe in you, every one of you, for I know what you are and I know what you have in you, and I want you to believe in yourselves. I want you to say, I, without being afraid. Don't be afraid to assert the I. Don't be afraid to say I. Say it, I, 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 until you begin to realize what a wonderful thing that I of you is, after all. Recognize the ego as a center of power and stop all this foolishness about being a worm of the dust. Don't be meek and humble like Uriah Heep. On the contrary, stand up with head thrown back, looking the world straight in the eyes, without fear, and say firmly and positively, I believe in God, and I believe in myself. You have heard it said that God helps those who help themselves, and He does, unquestionably. But this is also true. God believes in those who believe in themselves. And so does the world, because God has made it so. So start in now and say, early and often, I believe in myself. The faculty of firmness. 10. Firmness. This term does not have to be defined. You all know what it means. It is the faculty of stability, fixity, decision, perseverance, tenacity, manifestation of the determined will. Too much of it may make you mullish and stubborn, but very few of you have too much of it along the right lines. You need to develop it by the threefold method along the lines of putting your hand to the plow and looking not backward, sticking to your original plans despite the talk of others, resisting tendencies to sidetrack you. This is the faculty that keeps the will to the task, like the chisel to the metal until the work is done. Be firm as a rock against which beats the storms, but which yields not an inch, nor is it hurt a particle. Have a mind of your own, and hold to what you believe is right. See your object and march straight to it, firm in your determination and purpose. By all means, develop the faculty of firmness. The faculty of earnest expectation. 11. Hope. This is the faculty of expectation and anticipation. It gives us one of the three features of success, earnest expectation. You must believe in your success and must earnestly expect it. Cultivate hope and earnest expectation by all means. Be not a mere dreamer or visionary through excessive hope, but cultivate desire, then develop earnest expectation, then will to act. Each of these features is necessary to the great three. Develop it by the threefold method along the lines of looking on the bright side, visualization, looking aloft, not worrying, and belief in the efficacy of earnest demand accompanied by earnest work. Visualization is the greatest incentive to hope and earnest expectation. When you can see the thing done in your mind's eye, you have started to build in earnest. The rest is a mere matter of detail and work. The faculty of good nature. 12. Mirthfulness. This is the faculty of humor. By all means, cultivate the sense of humor. It will save you from more follies and ridiculous positions than anything else. and cultivate the cheerful spirit, for it will make life easier for you and will lubricate the machinery of work and endeavor. It will also make friends for you and will tend to remove the obstacles which the world throws in the way of people who are sour, disagreeable, and grouchy. Smile, and the world smiles with you. Frown, and you get a frown. Develop this faculty, by all means, by the threefold method along the lines of humor, joy, cheerfulness. Morals, strength, and power. And so now, I have called your attention to the faculties most prominent in the magnetic man. I have not spoken of his religious or moral faculties because these lessons are dealing with another part of his makeup. But do not imagine that the qualities named here have no connection with the religious or moral life. There's nothing that I have recommended here that will not apply as well to the minister as the businessman, to the priest as well as the salesman. The same mental qualities that make a bad man great and strong will make a good man great and strong. Morals are one thing and degrees of strength another. Good men may be strong or weak. Bad men may also be strong or weak. And in the degree of strength will be the degree of influence, for good or evil, that a man will manifest. With this in mind, I think that it would be a great thing for the world if someone were to distribute this book among the good men of the world who have imagined that there was nothing but selfish knowledge in mental magic. Mental states and their emanations. And now, in closing this last lesson, let me remind you that these mental states, cultivated and developed, as I have shown you, will manifest themselves in your outward manner and demeanor as mental suggestions to those with whom you come in contact. The symbol will spring from the inner reality, and they will also manifest in the shape of currents of desire force and willpower, which will sweep far and wide, as well as near and close, influencing and affecting those within their field of induction. From these mental states will flow a strong stream of magnetism, which will tend to draw to you that which you demand and desire, and which will also tend to force and compel the things that you so will. You are a great center of force, which radiates from you continually. Realize this and endeavor to charge that force with the best qualities and properties, that while you are asserting your own individual rights, you will still be doing something toward the great work of strengthening the race, to the end that it may produce more real individuals ready and capable of playing their part in the great drama of life on the stage of the universe. Concluding remarks. I consider these lessons to be my most important work. They are along new lines and are radical in the treatment given the subject. They are as meat for strong men and not milk for babes. There is no bromide or pink tea effects in them. They are vital, radical, and positive. Their message is strength. All truth that is worthwhile renders its possessor stronger. If any teachings cannot stand this test, discard them. Nature's law is toward producing strong individuals. Fall in with it, and nature will come to your aid, for then you will be one of its chosen ones. Fall in with the law of evolution. Do not run contrary to it. In the one case, you are nourished, supported, strengthened, and encouraged. In the other, you are relentlessly crowded out by the operations of the law. For whom these lessons are written. If you get one half the benefit from the study of these lessons that I obtained from the writing of them, you will be well repaid for your task. They are as a live wire, charged with the elemental force, energy, and truth about certain occult natural laws. They contain a message for you, which I trust you will heed, for you need it. If you are an individual, this teaching is just what you want. And the same is true if you are not one, but want to be one. But if you are a weakling and prefer to remain so, instead of rising and claiming your birthright of strength, your heritage of power, then by all means, remain as you are and go on your own way. Leave these teachings for the others of your brethren who will not sell their birthright of power for the mess of pottage of negative content and sheep-like passivity, but who are boldly claiming their own and demanding their rightful portion. These strong brothers of yours, the individuals who are the coming inheritors of the earth. My message to the individual. I have tried to infuse my words with the strong, vital energy which I feel surging through me as I write out this message of strength to you. I trust that these words will act as a current of verbal electrons, each carrying its full charge of dynamic power. And I trust that each word will act to so fill you with the mentative energy that gave them birth, and will thus awaken in you a similar mental state, desire, and will to be strong, forceful, and dynamic, determined to assert your individuality in being and doing that which the universal creative desire and will is hoping that you will be and do. I send to you this message charged with the very dynamic vibrations of my brain as it transforms and converts the mentative energy into thoughts and words. I send it to you, yes, you, who are now reading the words with all the energy, force, and power at my command, to the end that it pierce your armor of indifference, fear, and doubt, and I can't, and that reaching into your heart of desire, it may fill you with the very spirit of individuality, conscience, egohood, perception of reality, and realization of the I. So that from hence on your battle cry will be changed, and you will plunge into the thick of the fight, filled with the berserker rage, like the Icelandic hero of old, and shouting your positive cry of freedom, I can and I will. You will mow your way clear through the ranks of the horde of ignorance and negativity, and reach the heights beyond. This is my message to you, the individual. Finis. And this is the end of the reading of chapter 7, as well as the end and conclusion of reading of the book titled The Secret of Mental Magic by William Walker Atkinson. Before you leave, please do hit that like button. Leave me a comment. Let me know which one was your favorite chapter. What did you take out of this one? And if you have any recommendations for any future reading, please let me know. Post it in the comment here. Subscribe, and we'll connect here at my channel at the next video, wherever that may be. Until then, be blessed.